The morning sun cast long shadows across the landing pad as Jake Morrison watched the alien ships descend through New Haven's pale blue sky. 3 massive vessels, each one gleaming like polished obsidian, settled onto the reinforced platforms with barely a whisper of sound. Jake had seen plenty of alien ships before, but these were different. These belonged to the Crithian Empire, and everyone in the galaxy knew what that meant. Jake adjusted his uniform collar and tried to ignore the nervous flutter in his stomach. As captain of New Haven's diplomatic corps, he had welcomed dozens of alien species to the colony. But the Crithians had a reputation. They were conquerors, plain and simple. Every species they encountered either joined their empire willingly or was forced to join. There were no exceptions in their 1,000-year history. Behind Jake stood his small team. There was Martinez, his second in command, a calm woman who never seemed to panic no matter what happened. Beside her stood Lisa Chen, head of colonial security, who looked more interested in the ship's design than worried about their occupants. The rest of the diplomatic team waited further back, trying to look professional despite their obvious anxiety. The largest ship's ramp extended with a hiss of hydraulics. What emerged made several of Jake's team members take an involuntary step backward. The Crithians were massive. The first one to walk down the ramp stood at least 8 feet tall, maybe more. His body was covered in what looked like crystalline armor, but Jake knew from the briefings that it was actually their skin. The crystals shifted colors as he moved, showing patterns of blue and purple light that rippled across his form like water. Behind him came 6 more Crithians, all equally imposing, all radiating the same sense of barely contained power. The leader stopped a few feet from Jake. His face was angular and sharp, with eyes that glowed with an inner amber light. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, translated instantly by the universal communicators everyone wore. "I am Commander Vex Thor of the Crithian Empire. You are the leader of this human settlement." Jake extended his hand in the traditional human greeting, keeping his voice friendly but firm. "Captain Jake Morrison, welcome to New Haven. We're honored to meet you." Vex Thor looked at the extended hand with what might have been confusion, then ignored it entirely. "There is no need for extended pleasantries. We come with a simple offer. Humanity will join the Crithian Empire as a protectorate species. You will receive our protection, access to our technology, and a place within the greatest civilization in the galaxy. In return, you acknowledge Crithian authority and contribute to the Empire as your abilities allow." The bluntness of it caught Jake off guard, though he tried not to show it. "That's quite an offer, Commander. But humanity values its independence. We'd be happy to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchanges, or mutual defense pacts. We're always looking for friends among the stars." Something flickered in Vex Thor's glowing eyes. "Friends? You misunderstand, Captain Morrison. This is not a negotiation. Every species in the galaxy has a place in the natural order. The strong guide the weak. The advanced protect the primitive. Humanity is young, inexperienced, vulnerable. We offer you a chance to survive and prosper under our guidance." Martinez leaned close to Jake and whispered, "Sir, we should at least hear them out. Get more details." Jake nodded and gestured toward the main building. "Perhaps we should discuss this inside where we can be more comfortable. I'm sure there are details to work out." Vex Thor made a sound that might have been agreement, and the group moved toward the diplomatic hall. As they walked, Jake noticed Lisa Chen studying the Crithians with an intensity that made him slightly nervous. Lisa was good at her job, maybe too good sometimes. She had a way of seeing threats before anyone else did. Inside the hall, human and Crithian delegates took seats around a large oval table. Vex Thor placed a holographic projector in the center, and images began to display. Star maps, trade routes, military positions. The Crithian Empire was vast, spanning hundreds of systems. Humanity's territory, by comparison, looked like a tiny cluster of dots in one corner. "As you can see," Vex Thor continued, "humanity occupies only 23 systems. You have no major military fleet, no advanced defensive installations, and limited technological capabilities compared to the major powers. You exist in a dangerous galaxy, Captain Morrison. There are predators in the darkness that would consume your species without hesitation. We've managed so far," Jake replied carefully. "Humanity might be young, but we're not helpless. Your confidence is admirable but misplaced." Vex Thor zoomed the display to show several regions marked in red. "These are hostile territories. The Vexnar Swarm, the Talaxian Marauders, the Crimson Collective.
Any one of them could destroy humanity within months if they chose to focus their attention on you.
Under Crithian protection, you would be safe, Martinez spoke up. And what would this protection cost us exactly? Your military would integrate with ours. Your resources would be managed through imperial oversight. Your leaders would answer to Crithian governors. In time, as you prove yourselves, you would gain more autonomy. Many species have thrived under this arrangement. Many species have lost their identity under this arrangement, Jake countered. We appreciate the offer, Commander. But humanity isn't interested in becoming part of someone else's empire. We're happy to work with you as equals, but not as subjects. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Vexthor stood slowly, his crystalline body reflecting the light in sharp, angry patterns. Equals? You believe humanity is equal to the Crithian Empire? I believe every species has value, Jake said, standing as well. We don't measure worth by military power or territorial size. We measure it by character, by cooperation, by mutual respect. Respect is earned through strength. Vexthor's voice had an edge to it now. You speak of equality, but you have no understanding of the galaxy you inhabit. The Crithian Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. We have crushed enemies that would terrify you. We offer you mercy and protection, and you respond with naive idealism. We respond with principle, Jake said firmly. Humanity won't kneel to anyone, no matter how powerful they claim to be. Silence filled the room. The other Crithians stood as well, forming a wall of crystalline muscle behind their commander. Jake's team tensed, hands moving unconsciously toward weapons they weren't carrying in a diplomatic meeting. Vexthor studied Jake for a long moment, then made a decision. Very well. There is a tradition among our people for situations like this, a trial by combat. Single champions from each side face each other in honorable battle. If the Crithian wins, humanity accepts our terms. If the human wins, we withdraw and leave you to your independence. Do you accept? Jake's mind raced. It was a trap, obviously. The Crithians were warriors, bred and trained for combat. They were bigger, stronger, probably faster. Choosing a human champion to fight one would be suicide. But refusing would make humanity look weak and frightened. What are the rules? He asked. No projectile weapons. Melee combat only. The fight continues until one side yields or is unable to continue. By Crithian law, such a duel is binding. We will honor the result, whatever it may be. Martinez leaned close again. Sir, this is suicide. We can't win a straight fight against them. Before Jake could respond, Lisa Chen stepped forward. I'll do it. Everyone turned to look at her. Lisa was of average height for a human, maybe 5.5 feet tall, with a slim build that looked almost fragile compared to the massive Crithians. She didn't look like a fighter. She looked like someone who spent her days behind a desk. Lisa, you don't have to, Jake began. I volunteer, she said simply, her eyes meeting Vexthor's without fear. I'll be humanity's champion. Vexthor looked at her with something that might have been pity. You are certain, human? I am a decorated warrior of the Crithian Empire. I have fought in 100 duels and won them all. I do not wish to kill you, but I will not hold back for the sake of mercy. Lisa smiled. It wasn't a nervous smile or a brave smile. It was the kind of smile someone has when they know something others don't. I appreciate your concern, Commander. When do we start? Tomorrow at dawn. We will prepare an arena on neutral ground. The duel will be broadcast so both our peoples can witness it. Vexthor turned to Jake. You should choose another champion, Captain. This one is too small to stand against me. The lady volunteered, Jake said, though his stomach was churning with worry. We honor that choice. Vexthor nodded slowly. So be it. May your gods grant her a swift end. As the Crithians left to return to their ships, Martinez grabbed Jake's arm. Sir, we can't let her do this. She'll be killed. Jake watched Lisa, who was calmly checking her communicator as if she'd just volunteered for a routine patrol instead of a death match. Did you see her face when she stepped forward? She looked calm, but she looked confident, Jake interrupted. Lisa doesn't bluff. If she thinks she can win, there's a reason. He paused. I hope. Lisa looked up from her communicator and caught Jake's eye. That smile was still there. Don't worry, Captain. I've got this. Care to share why you're so confident? Martinez asked. The commander made an assumption, Lisa said. He looked at me and saw someone weak. Someone small. Someone who couldn't possibly. Dawn arrived cold and clear over the neutral ground between New Haven's colony and the Crithian landing zone. Work crews had spent the night constructing an arena, a circular platform 50 meters across with force barriers around the edges. The barriers would keep the fighters in and protect the spectators, though there weren't many present in person. Most people would watch through holographic broadcast. Millions of viewers across human and Crithian space. Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the arena, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. If Lisa lost, humanity would become part of the Crithian Empire. Everything humans had built, all their dreams of independence among the stars, would be gone. And it would be his fault for accepting this challenge. Martinez stood beside him, arms crossed, face tight with worry. "It's not too late to call this off, sir. We could claim technical difficulties, request a delay, something, and look like cowards?" Jake shook his head. "No, Lisa wanted this. We have to trust her." On the opposite side of the arena, Vexthor prepared for battle. He wore ceremonial armor now, gleaming plates of some advanced metal alloy fitted over his crystalline body. In his hands he carried two curved blades that crackled with blue energy. Plasma weapons designed to cut through almost anything. His fellow Crithians stood behind him in formation, witnesses to what they assumed would be a quick and decisive victory. Lisa arrived 15 minutes before the scheduled start time. She wore simple combat fatigues, the kind human soldiers used for training exercises. No armor, no obvious weapons, no technological enhancements. She looked like someone who had gotten dressed for a jog around the colony, not a fight to the death. Jake met her at the entrance to the arena. "Lisa, are you absolutely sure about this?" She stretched her arms over her head, rolling her shoulders to loosen up. "Captain, how long have I been head of security here?" 4 years. "And in those 4 years, have I ever been wrong about a threat assessment?" Jake thought about it. Lisa had an almost uncanny ability to spot danger before it materialized. She'd prevented 3 terrorist attacks, identified 2 smuggling operations, and once stopped what would have been a catastrophic reactor failure just by noticing that something looked wrong. "No, you haven't. Then trust me now." She smiled that same confident smile from yesterday. "I've got this." A holographic timer appeared above the arena, counting down from 5 minutes. Lisa walked onto the platform, her steps light and easy. Vexthor entered from the opposite side, his heavy footfalls making the platform vibrate slightly. The size difference was almost comical. He stood 8 feet tall and probably weighed 300 pounds. She barely reached his chest and looked like she weighed maybe 120 soaking wet. The arena's automated system announced the terms of combat in both languages. Melee weapons only. Fight continues until yield or incapacitation. The result is binding by Crithian law and human honor. May the worthiest warrior prevail. The timer reached 0. Vexthor raised his plasma blades, energy crackling along their edges. His voice boomed across the arena, amplified so everyone watching could hear. "I'll kill you, human, if you don't kneel." Lisa just smiled. Then she moved. What happened next would be analyzed and debated for years afterward. Vexthor lunged forward with the kind of speed that shouldn't have been possible for something his size. The plasma blades came down in a strike that would have split Lisa in half, but she wasn't there anymore. She'd moved to the side, not with desperate panic, but with casual efficiency, as if she'd known exactly where the blades would be before Vexthor even started his swing. The Crithian commander adjusted instantly, spinning to bring the second blade around in a horizontal slash. Again, Lisa wasn't there. She ducked under it, and as she came up, her fist snapped out in a quick jab that connected with the joint where Vexthor's arm met his shoulder. The hit looked light, almost casual, but Vexthor's arm spasmed and the blade in that hand flickered. Vexthor backed up, reassessing. His eyes narrowed as he studied this small human who moved like smoke and struck like a viper. He began to circle, and Lisa mirrored him, maintaining distance, her body relaxed but ready. Jake watched with his heart in his throat. "She's faster than him." Martinez leaned forward, studying the fight. "Not faster. She's reading him. Look at how she moves just before he commits to an attack. She knows what he's going to do." She was right. Humans had evolved as hunters on Earth, a world of predators. Their brains were wired to recognize patterns, to predict movement, to anticipate danger. Lisa wasn't just reacting to Vexthor's attacks. She was seeing them coming, reading the tiny tells in his posture and movement that signaled his intentions. Vexthor attacked again, this time with a combination of strikes that would have overwhelmed most opponents. High slash, low stab, spinning strike, overhead chop. Each attack was perfectly executed with the skill of someone who had trained for decades. But each attack hit empty air. Lisa flowed around them like water, never moving more than necessary, never wasting energy. Then she countered. A quick step inside his guard, a palm strike to his chest that made his crystalline body ring like a bell, a sweep of her leg that forced him to shift his weight. None of the strikes were devastating on their own, but they added up. Vexthor was breathing harder now, his movements slightly less precise. The fight continued. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. The Krathian observers began to murmur among themselves. This wasn't how these things usually went. Most opponents either fell quickly or tired out within minutes, but this human showed no signs of fatigue. If anything, she seemed to be getting warmer, moving with more fluidity as the fight progressed. Vexthor was struggling now. His species was powerful, yes, but they weren't built for endurance. They were sprinters, not marathon runners. Quick, devastating strikes were their specialty. Long, drawn-out battles were not. His breathing came in heavy gasps, his attacks slower, less coordinated. Lisa, on the other hand, was barely breathing hard. Humans were persistence hunters. They were built to run down prey over hours or even days. Their cardiovascular systems, their efficient cooling through sweat, their ability to regulate energy over long periods. These were advantages that millions of years of evolution had given them. At the 20-minute mark, Lisa changed tactics. She stopped evading entirely and engaged directly. A Krathian watching might have thought she was getting confident or careless. A human who knew combat would recognize it for what it was. She'd learned everything she needed to know. And now she was finishing the fight. She moved inside Vexthor's reach, too close for the long blades to be effective. Her strikes targeted the joints in his armor, the gaps in his crystalline hide, the places where leverage mattered more than strength. An elbow to the inside of his knee, a strike to the nerve cluster in his neck, a wrist lock that forced him to drop one of his blades. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other, developing martial arts, studying anatomy, finding the most efficient ways to defeat opponents regardless of size or strength. Lisa knew at least a dozen combat systems, each one refined over centuries. Against an opponent who had only ever fought according to Krathian traditions, it was like bringing a computer to a fight against someone with an abacus. Vexthor tried to grab her, to use his size and strength to pin her down, but Lisa knew grappling too. She used his momentum against him, twisted in ways that shouldn't have been possible, found pressure points that made his grip weaken. Every time he thought he had her, she slipped away. At the 30-minute mark, Lisa landed a solid strike to Vexthor's knee joint. Something cracked. The Krathian commander stumbled, his leg buckling. He tried to stand, tried to raise his remaining blade, but his body wasn't responding properly anymore. The accumulation of strikes, the exhaustion, the damage to his joints, it all caught up at once. He dropped to one knee, his blade falling from nerveless fingers. His breathing was ragged, his crystalline body flickering with erratic patterns of light. He looked up at Lisa, who stood 3 feet away, hands at her sides, not even breathing hard. For a long moment, silence filled the arena. Then Lisa spoke, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet.
Do you yield, Commander?
Vexthor stared at her, and something remarkable happened. His expression shifted from shock to understanding, to something that might have been respect. He had been a warrior his entire life. He knew when he was beaten. Staying down wasn't cowardice. It was wisdom. I yield, he said. The arena erupted in sound. Human spectators cheered. Krathian observers stood in stunned silence. Jake felt like he could breathe again for the first time in 30 minutes. Martinez was laughing and crying at the same time. Lisa walked over to Vexthor and extended her hand, the same greeting Jake had offered yesterday. This time the Krathian commander took it. She helped pull him to his feet, supporting some of his weight as his injured leg struggled to hold him. You fight well, human, Vexthor said, his voice carrying genuine respect now. I have never faced an opponent like you. You fought with honor, Lisa replied. You just didn't know what you were fighting against. Humans might look weak, Commander, but we've been fighting for survival since before we could walk upright. We're very, very good at it. The Krathian homeworld of Krithia Prime was a sight that inspired awe in any visitor. Massive crystalline spires reached toward the red sky, each one a monument to military victory. The capital city of Vextara housed the High Council, the ruling body of an empire that stretched across 200 star systems. It was here that Commander Vexthor returned after his defeat, expecting judgment. The council chamber was enormous, with walls that glowed with the same bioluminescent patterns that covered Crithian bodies. 12 council members sat on elevated platforms, each one a veteran of countless campaigns. At the center sat Elder Kirsha, the oldest living Crithian, a warrior whose crystalline body had begun to turn gold with age. Vexthor stood in the center of the chamber, his injured leg still healing but supporting his weight. He wore no armor now, just the simple robes of a warrior returning from mission. His head was held high despite his defeat. He had followed Crithian law. He had nothing to be ashamed of. Elder Kirsha spoke first, her voice ancient but strong. Commander Vexthor, you were sent to bring humanity into our empire. You engaged in honorable combat according to our traditions. You lost. Explain this failure. Vexthor took a breath and began his report. He described the meeting with Captain Morrison, the humans' polite but firm refusal of Crithian authority, the challenge issued and accepted. Then he described the fight itself, every detail he could remember. The council listened in silence. When Vexthor described how the human female moved, how she seemed to know his attacks before he made them, how she never tired even as he exhausted himself, several council members leaned forward with interest. She was small, Vexthor continued. By our standards, by any warrior's standards, she should have been no match for me. But size did not matter. She used techniques I had never encountered, struck at angles I did not expect, and fought with a patience that wore me down. I landed perhaps 3 strikes on her throughout the entire fight. She landed hundreds on me. Counselor Thalrax, a decorated general, spoke up. You are suggesting that this single human was a better warrior than you? A commander who has won over 100 duels? I am suggesting that I fought a warrior trained in ways we do not understand. Vexthor replied carefully. The human security officer fought not with raw power but with precision, endurance, and knowledge. She studied me during the fight, learned my patterns, and adapted. When she finally engaged directly, she knew exactly where to strike to disable me. Then she was an exceptional individual. Another counselor suggested, one outstanding fighter among an otherwise weak species. Vexthor hesitated. This was the question he had been wrestling with since the defeat. I do not believe so, honored council. I believe she represents what all humans are capable of. Silence fell over the chamber. Elder Kirsha gestured for him to continue. After the fight, I spoke with her briefly, Vexthor said. She mentioned training since childhood. She spoke of something called martial arts combat systems developed over thousands of years. She referenced military service and special operations. The humans take warfare seriously, perhaps more seriously than we do. Impossible, Counselor Thalrax scoffed. We are warriors. We have built an empire on martial prowess. How could these young species possibly exceed us in combat? Because they fight differently, Vexthor said quietly. We fight for honor, for glory, for the empire. We have traditions, forms, proper ways of engaging in combat. But during my research after the duel, I discovered something troubling about humanity. He activated a holographic display. Images filled the chamber, images pulled from human historical databases. Battlefields soaked in blood, weapons of terrible destructive power, soldiers fighting in conditions that would kill most species. Humanity evolved on a Class 9 death world, Vexthor continued. Their planet tried to kill them every single day. Predators, diseases, weather, even the plants were dangerous. But humanity survived. Then they turned on each other. More images appeared. Wars that lasted years. Conflicts that killed millions. Weapons development programs that seemed designed solely to find more efficient ways to destroy other humans. They have been fighting for their entire existence, Vexthor said. Not just survival battles against nature, but organized warfare against each other. They have developed hundreds of martial arts, thousands of tactical doctrines, millions of strategic variations. While we fought to expand our empire, they fought to survive against themselves. Elder Kirsha studied the images carefully. You believe this makes them dangerous? I believe this makes them more dangerous than anything we have encountered, Vexthor replied. But there is something else, something perhaps more important. During the fight, the human could have killed me. I was vulnerable many times. She chose not to. After I yielded, she helped me stand. She showed me respect even in victory. He paused, choosing his words carefully. They are warriors who choose restraint, predators who have learned cooperation. They are capable of extraordinary violence, yet they extend mercy. This is not weakness. This is control. This is the most dangerous kind of strength. The council chamber was silent as the members absorbed this information. Finally, Counselor Thalrak spoke again, his tone less dismissive now. You suggest we cannot conquer them? I suggest that attempting to conquer them would be unwise, Vexthor replied. By our own laws, they defeated us in honorable combat. We must respect that outcome. But more than that, I suggest that humanity represents something we have not encountered before. They are not like the species we have absorbed into our empire. They will not submit through intimidation, and they cannot be defeated easily through force. Then what do you recommend? Elder Kirsha asked. Vexthor took a breath before answering. Alliance, not submission. If we cannot defeat them, perhaps we should stand beside them. The suggestion created an uproar. Several counselors began speaking at once, their voices filled with disbelief and anger. The Crithian Empire did not ally with lesser species. It conquered or it ignored. There was no middle ground. Elder Kirsha raised a hand and silence returned. She studied Vexthor for a long moment, her ancient eyes seeming to see past his words to the truth beneath. You admire them, she said quietly. It was not a question. Vexthor considered denying it but chose honesty instead. I respect them, Elder. I respect any warrior who fights with honor and skill. The human who defeated me was my equal in combat, perhaps my superior. That is not weakness on my part or hers. It is simply truth. And if we choose to ignore them? Another counselor asked. If we simply withdraw and leave them to their independence? Then we lose an opportunity, Vexthor said. Other species are watching. They saw a human defeat a Crithian commander. They saw us honor our laws and withdraw. Some will see this as proof that we can be beaten. Others will see it as evidence that we have wisdom beyond simple conquest. How we respond now will determine which interpretation spreads across the galaxy. Elder Kirsha nodded slowly. You have given us much to consider, Commander. You acted with honor according to our laws. You fought to your fullest ability. The defeat was not due to cowardice or incompetence. Therefore, you will face no punishment. Relief washed over Vexthor, though he tried not to show it. Thank you, Elder. However, Kirsha continued, we will take time to deliberate on the matter of humanity. You are dismissed. Vexthor bowed and left the chamber. As he walked through the crystalline corridors of the council building, he passed other Crithians who had heard of his defeat. Some looked at him with scorn, others with curiosity, but all of them wondered the same thing. How had a human beaten a Crithian warrior? In his private quarters, Vexthor accessed the recordings of the duel that had been broadcast across the Empire. He watched the fight again, studying every movement, every strike, every tactical decision. The more he watched, the more he understood just how outmatched he had been. Lisa Chen had not just beaten him. She had dominated him while making it look effortless. But what struck him most was the moment after his yield. The way she had helped him stand, supported his weight, spoken to him with respect rather than triumph. In Crithian culture, defeated warriors were pitied at best, scorned at worst. But Lisa had treated him as an equal, as a fellow warrior who had simply lost a match. Humans were strange, dangerous but merciful, strong but humble. Predators who valued cooperation. The more Vexthor learned about them, the more fascinated he became. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, deliberations continued late into the night. The 12 members reviewed everything they could find about humanity. Their history, their technology, their culture, their military capabilities. Every piece of information added to a picture that was both troubling and intriguing. They only have 23 star systems, one counselor argued. How can they possibly threaten an empire of 200 systems? Numbers are not everything, Elder Kirsha replied. A small knife in skilled hands is more dangerous than a large sword wielded clumsily. Humanity may be small, but they are skilled. They defeated us once in single combat, Counselor Thalrak said. That does not mean they could withstand a military campaign, could they? Kirsha challenged. Look at their military doctrine. They do. 6 months passed after the duel. Life in human space returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after humanity had defeated the Crithian Empire's champion in front of millions of viewers. Trade increased with some alien species while others became more cautious. But overall, humanity continued to grow and explore, one small colony at a time. Commander Vexthor remained near human space, officially as an observer for the Crithian Council. Unofficially, he found himself genuinely interested in studying these strange warriors who had defeated him. He watched their trade negotiations, monitored their diplomatic missions, and analyzed their military exercises. Everything he learned reinforced his belief that humanity was special, though he still could not fully articulate why. Then the distress calls began. The first came from a Crithian mining colony on the Galactic Rim. The message was brief and terrified. Under attack. Unknown hostiles. Massive numbers. Request immediate assistance. Then silence. Within days, 3 more colonies went dark. Crithian military vessels were dispatched to investigate. What they found horrified them. The colonies were gone. Not conquered or occupied, but consumed. Buildings stripped to bare metal. Resources extracted down to the bedrock. No survivors, no bodies, just empty shells where thriving settlements had been. The enemy revealed itself at the 4th colony. Military drones captured footage before they too were destroyed. The attackers were like nothing the Crithians had encountered before. Biomechanical creatures that seemed part insect, part machine. They moved in swarms of thousands, coordinating with perfect precision. They tore through Crithian defenses like they were made of paper. The Crithian High Council identified the threat, the Vexnar swarm. Ancient records spoke of them. A hive mind species of bioengineered killing machines that emerge from deep space every few centuries to consume everything in their path. They had no interest in negotiation, no concept of mercy, no goal beyond consumption and growth. The Crithian military mobilized. Fleets were assembled. Warriors prepared for battle, but the early engagements were disasters. The swarm was relentless, adapting to Crithian tactics within hours of each fight. Traditional Crithian warfare, built around honor and structured combat, was useless against an enemy that felt no fear and showed no pattern. After 2 weeks of fighting, the Crithians had lost 12 colonies and 3 full battle fleets. Casualties were in the hundreds of thousands. The swarm continued to advance, consuming everything in its path and growing stronger with each victory. It was Elder Kirsha who suggested the unthinkable. "We need help." The council chamber erupted in protest. Ask for help? The Crithian Empire had never asked another species for military assistance. It was unthinkable. It would show weakness. "We are dying," Kirsha said flatly. "Our warriors are brave, but bravery is not enough against this enemy. We need a different approach. We need the humans." Commander Vexthor, present for the council session, stepped forward. "Elder Kirsha is correct. The humans fight differently than we do. They use tactics that might work against the swarm. They have barely 20 ships that could be considered military vessels." Councillor Thalrax argued. "What help could they possibly provide?" "More than you think," Vexthor replied. "I have studied their military doctrine for 6 months. They do not fight like we do. They deceive, they improvise, they adapt. These are exactly the qualities we need against an enemy that learns and evolves." The debate continued for hours, but the mounting casualties made the decision inevitable. A delegation would be sent to Earth to request assistance. Commander Vexthor would lead it. The Crithian delegation arrived at Earth with considerably less arrogance than their previous visit to New Haven. Vexthor met with President Martinez, the same woman who had stood beside Jake Morrison during the duel. "President Martinez," Vexthor began, choosing his words carefully. "I come not to demand but to request. The Vexnar swarm has attacked Crithian space. We are losing. Millions of civilians are dying. We ask for humanity's help in fighting this threat." Martinez studied the holographic displays showing the swarm's devastation. The images were horrific. Entire colonies reduced to empty husks, ships torn apart. Survivors. There were no survivors. "Why should we help you?" Martinez asked, not unkindly but honestly. 6 months ago you wanted to make us your subjects. Now you ask us to bleed for you? Vexthor had expected this question. "You should help because it is right. Because civilians are dying. Because the swarm will not stop with Crithian space. It will continue to expand, consuming everything in its path. Eventually it will reach human colonies. Better to stop it now than wait for it to arrive at your doorstep." Martinez was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "I'll need to consult with our military command. Give us 6 hours. Those 6 hours felt like an eternity to Vexthor. He knew what was at stake. If humanity refused, the Crithian Empire would continue fighting alone and likely lose. But he also knew he had no right to expect their help. The Crithians had offered nothing but demands before. Why would humans risk their lives for an empire that had shown them so little respect? When the meeting reconvened, Martinez brought Admiral Jake Morrison with her. The former diplomat had been promoted after his handling of the Crithian first contact situation. He now commanded Earth's small but growing defense fleet. "We'll help," Martinez said simply. "Not because you asked, not because we owe you anything, but because people are dying, and we don't stand by when we can make a difference." Relief flooded through Vexthor. "Thank you, President Martinez. Your assistance means—" "Don't thank us yet," Jake interrupted. "Our fleet is small. 12 combat-capable ships, maybe 30 support vessels. We're not going to turn the tide of this war by ourselves." "Numbers are not everything," Vexthor said, echoing Elder Kirsch's words from months ago. "Your tactics, your adaptability, your perspective, these may be worth more than ships." "Let's hope you're right," Jake replied. "Because we're about to find out." The human defense fleet prepared for departure. 12 ships, as Jake had said, each one small by Crithian standards but packed with technology and crew, trained for exactly this kind of asymmetric warfare. The flagship, the HDF Liberty, would serve as command center. Jake took overall command, with Lisa Chen assigned as his tactical advisor. When Lisa reported for duty, Vexthor was surprised to see her again. She wore a military uniform now instead of security fatigues, with the insignia of a tactical operations specialist. "Commander Vexthor," she greeted him with a slight smile. "Good to see you again." "How's the knee?" "Fully healed, thanks to you not breaking it completely," he replied. "You will be helping plan our operations against the swarm." "That's the plan. I've been reviewing the combat footage from your engagements. The swarm is tough, but it's not unbeatable. It just requires a different approach than you're used to." "And you have ideas?" Lisa's smile widened. "Always." The combined fleet, 12 human ships and 40 Crithian warships, traveled to the Meridian system, a strategic choke point where the swarm's advance could potentially be slowed. Intelligence suggested a major swarm force was approaching. Thousands of bioships clustered in a formation that blotted out the stars. In the command center of the HDF Liberty, Jake reviewed the tactical situation with his officers and Crithian observers. The swarm outnumbered them at least 20-1. Conventional wisdom said they should retreat, regroup, try to find better odds. Lisa thought differently. The swarm operates on hive mind logic. It's efficient, coordinated, but also predictable once you understand its patterns. It thinks every enemy will behave rationally, follow standard tactical doctrine. "We're not going to do that. What do you suggest?" Vexthor asked. Lisa activated a holographic display showing the Meridian system's layout. 3 planets, 2 asteroid fields, and a dying star that was unusually active. "We're going to use everything this system has to offer. The asteroids for cover and improvised weapons. The planet's gravity wells for maneuvering. Even the star's radiation." "That is insane," a Crithian officer said. "The radiation levels near that star would damage our ships." "It'll damage the swarm too," Lisa replied. "But we're going to use it strategically while they fly straight through it. Humans are good at fighting in hostile environments. We've been doing it on Earth for millions of years." The battle plan was unlike anything the Crithians had ever seen. Human ships would act as bait, drawing swarm forces into ambush zones. They would use the asteroid fields as cover, launching surprise attacks and then retreating before the swarm could overwhelm them. They would push swarm ships toward the star's radiation, letting the environment do as much damage as the weapons. "This is not honorable combat," Vexthor observed. "No," Jake agreed. "It's survival. The swarm doesn't care about honor, Commander. It only cares about consumption. We're going to fight the way humans have always fought when survival was on the line. We're going to cheat, lie, use every dirty trick we can think of and do whatever it takes to win." Vexthor considered this. Everything in his training, his culture, his warrior's heart rebelled against the idea of such dishonorable tactics. But then he remembered his conversation with Elder Kirsha about how humans were warriors who chose restraint, about how they had learned to. The victory at Meridian System sent shockwaves across the galaxy. News traveled fast through trade routes and communication networks. The Vexnar swarm, an enemy that had consumed countless civilizations throughout history, had been forced to retreat. And the species that helped turn the tide was humanity, a young race barely known to most galactic powers just a year ago. The aftermath of the battle brought changes that neither humans nor Crithians had fully anticipated. The Crithian High Council convened to discuss what had happened and what it meant for the Empire's future. Elder Kirsha addressed the assembly, her golden crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights. We must acknowledge a truth we have long denied. Strength alone does not guarantee survival. The swarm was stronger than us. It had numbers we could not match. Yet we survived because we accepted help from a species we once sought to dominate. Councillor Thalrax, who had opposed asking for human assistance, spoke up. His voice carried humility that had not been there before. The humans fought beside us as equals. They took losses defending Crithian civilians. They used tactics we would have called dishonorable. Yet those tactics saved millions of lives. I was wrong to dismiss them. The council discussed for hours, reviewing combat footage, casualty reports, and tactical analyses. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. Humanity represented something the Crithian Empire had never encountered. Not subjects to be conquered, not enemies to be destroyed, but partners who could stand beside them as equals. Commander Vexthor stood before the council once more, but this time he was not reporting a defeat. I recommend a formal alliance with humanity, not as vassals or protectorates, but as true allies, the Meridian Accord, named for the system where we first fought together. The proposal was radical. The Crithian Empire had never formed an equal alliance with another species. Their entire identity was built on superiority and dominance. But the Battle of Meridian had proven that pride could be fatal. Adaptation was survival. After deliberation, the council voted. The motion passed. The Crithian Empire would offer humanity a formal alliance between equals. On Earth, President Martinez received the Crithian proposal with cautious optimism. Her cabinet was divided. Some argued that humanity should remain independent, avoid entanglements with galactic powers. Others believed that an alliance with the Crithians would provide security and opportunities for growth. Admiral Jake Morrison was present for the discussions, along with Lisa Chen, who had become something of a celebrity after her duel with Vexthor. The footage of that fight had been viewed billions of times across human space, making her the face of humanity's unexpected strength. What do you think? Martinez asked Jake. You've worked closely with the Crithians. Can we trust them? Jake considered carefully. 6 months ago I would have said no. They came here expecting us to kneel, but they've changed. Or maybe we showed them something they needed to see. Either way, they fought beside us at Meridian. They bled with us. That counts for something. Lisa nodded in agreement. The Crithians value honor above almost everything. By their own laws, we defeated them in fair combat. They respected that outcome. Then we helped them when we had no obligation to do so. They'll remember that too. I think we can trust them, at least more than we can trust most of the galaxy. Martinez made her decision. Then we accept. The Meridian Accord it is. The treaty signing took place on neutral ground, aboard a specially constructed space station between human and Crithian territory. Representatives from both species gathered in a ceremony that was broadcast across the galaxy. Other species watched with mixed emotions. Curiosity, concern, and in some cases, fear. Elder Kirsha and President Martinez signed the treaty together, their vastly different forms side by side, representing the unlikely alliance. The terms were simple: mutual defense, open trade, cultural exchange, and joint exploration of unknown space. Neither species would dominate the other. Both would benefit from the partnership. Commander Vexthor stood beside the ceremony platform, wearing formal Crithian diplomatic robes. Next to him stood Lisa Chen in her military dress uniform. They had become symbols of the alliance, the two warriors whose duel had started everything. Strange how things change, Lisa remarked quietly. 6 months ago, we were trying to hurt each other. Now we're allies. Not so strange, Vexthor replied. Warriors understand each other better than diplomats sometimes. We fought with honor. We both survived. Now we fight together. It is a natural progression. For warriors, maybe. But our species have different definitions of honor. Do we? Vexthor looked at her thoughtfully. You fought with skill and mercy. You helped me stand after my defeat. You came to our aid when our people were dying. These are honorable actions by any definition? Lisa smiled. Maybe you're right. Maybe honor is universal, even if the details differ. The ceremony concluded with both leaders addressing the galaxy. Martinez spoke first, her words carefully chosen. Today marks a new chapter for humanity and the Crithian Empire. We come from different worlds, different histories, different ways of thinking, but we have learned that difference can be strength. We have learned that standing together, we can face threats that would overwhelm us separately. We offer this alliance as proof that cooperation is possible, even between species who started as adversaries. Elder Kirshaw spoke next, her ancient voice carrying authority. The Crithian Empire has existed for 1,000 years. We built our civilization on strength and conquest. We believed that domination was the natural order of the universe. Humanity taught us we were wrong. True strength is not the power to conquer, but the wisdom to choose partnership over domination. We are honored to call humanity our allies. As the ceremony ended, Jake found himself standing on the observation deck with Vexthor and Lisa, watching ships from both species patrol together in coordinated formations. "Do you think this will last?" Jake asked. "Alliances are easy to form in the glow of victory. Maintaining them is harder." Vexthor considered this. Among Crithians, once honor is given, it is not easily withdrawn. "We have acknowledged humanity as worthy. That recognition will endure." "And when the next threat comes?" Lisa asked. "Because there will always be another threat. The galaxy is dangerous. Then we face it together," Vexthor said simply. "That is what allies do." Their confidence was tested sooner than expected. 2 months after the Meridian Accord was signed, a new species made contact with human space. The Talaxian Commonwealth, a democratic federation of several species, sent a delegation to Earth. They had heard stories of the humans who defeated the Crithian champion and helped turn back the Vexnar swarm. They wanted to know, were these stories true? President Martinez welcomed the Talaxian delegation with the same courtesy she had shown everyone else. The Talaxians were reptilian beings, shorter than humans but with quick, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Their leader, Ambassador Kellos, got straight to the point. "We have watched humanity with great interest," Kellos said. "Your defeat of the Crithians was impressive. Your tactics against the swarm were revolutionary. The Commonwealth would like to propose a trade agreement and cultural exchange." "We would be happy to discuss that," Martinez replied. "Humanity values peaceful cooperation with all species, even with the Crithians?" Kellos asked pointedly. "They have been our enemies for generations. They conquered 2 of our member species centuries ago. Yet you ally with them?" Martinez met the ambassador's gaze steadily. "The Crithians we dealt with showed honor and courage. They respected our independence when they could have tried to force submission. They fought beside us against a common enemy. We judge species by their actions, not their history." Kellos seemed satisfied with this answer. The discussions continued for days, eventually resulting in a trade agreement between humanity and the Talaxian Commonwealth. But more importantly, it opened diplomatic channels that would lead to further connections across the galaxy. News of humanity spread. More species made contact, curious about these newcomers who seemed to operate by different rules. Some sought alliances, others wanted trade. A few wanted to test humanity's strength for themselves, though those quickly learned that challenging humans was unwise. 20 years passed. The galaxy changed in that time, and humanity was at the center of many of those changes. The human population expanded to over 50 star systems. Their technology advanced through trade and cooperation with other species. Their military, while still small compared to major powers, gained a reputation for tactical brilliance and stubborn determination. But more than military or economic power, humanity became known for something else. They showed up when disasters struck. When colonies needed aid, human relief ships arrived. When species faced threats they couldn't handle alone, human military advisors offered their expertise. When diplomatic solutions seemed impossible, human negotiators found creative compromises. It was not always successful. Humans made mistakes, offended species with different cultural norms, got involved in conflicts they didn't fully understand. But they learned from those mistakes, adapted and kept trying. Commander Vexthor, now Ambassador Vexthor to Earth, often reflected on how much had changed since that first meeting on New Haven. He had,